First of all, we're going to be giving $1.9 million to Bylaw. We're very much aware that Bylaw is on the streets every day, frequently, trying to deal very humanely with the outcomes of street disorder and encampments and camping on boulevards and a variety of other things. And the public has told us very clearly that we need to do more of that. And so as we look ahead in community safety to a different way of doing Bylaw and increasing those resources, we're going to immediately put enough resources into that to hire a dozen new staff people who will be able to execute their jobs more frequently, more intensively, more regularly throughout the downtown. I should say that these preliminary actions focus in their entirety on Pandora, Princess, and the downtown core. So everything that I'm talking about today will be focused in those areas. So Bylaw is up first, and that's, as I say, $1.9 million. That would be ongoing, because we anticipate that even as Bylaw evolves over the next few years with community safety, the amount of that work will continue to be had, even though it may change a little bit over time. The second thing that's there is an increase in policing. I will say that I've had a chance to speak with the current police chief, who's very supportive of this direction. As you well know, he was part of the community leaders panel for the construction of the community safety plan. And so this very much falls in line with his anticipation and his expectation of the resources that the city would provide to additional policing. So I have asked him to hire 9 additional new police officers as quickly as possible, which is approximately $1.35 million, and to do so with the intention to hire individuals or redeploy individuals, if that's the case, who will specifically have the skills and commitment to deal again with Pandora, Princess, and downtown. He has indicated that this is something that he believes he can do relatively expeditiously, with the caution, of course, that training new officers takes time. But he also has the ability to not only look at training new officers, but at potentially hiring people from different jurisdictions. And so that's an important move forward. And again, I have his assurances that he will do that as expeditiously as possible, with the idea that those officers will be focused in those 3 areas, and will work also in a complementary fashion with our Bylaw staff who so frequently work together. As a secondary piece in the policing, you're probably aware that the Victoria Police Department has recently been awarded between $220,000 and $240,000 as part of the province's C-STEP program, which deals with nonviolent crimes in the downtown core. That's great work, really important work, and deals with a lot of the on-the-ground problems and challenges that businesses have downtown in particular. And so we've decided to match those funds so that they can double their efforts in that way. That is a one-time payment, obviously, and so that will be sent pretty quick. The $1.35 million for additional police officers has to be permanent, and so I will reiterate that. That is now an ongoing budget commitment. It's unreasonable to expect to be able to hire new police for a year or 2, and so this council has made the commitment that that will become a permanent part of our budget moving forward. As an aside, you'll be well aware that we have a unique arrangement in Victoria and Esquimalt as to the way the service is delivered and funded. And so there is a clause within the current framework agreement that allows for each individual municipality to ask for specific targeted services for which they're willing to pay in its entirety. So we will be using that clause for these 9 officers, because we are asking them to focus solely on Pandora, Princess, and downtown. Public Works, of course, is very important for ensuring the cleanliness, hygiene, look, feel, atmosphere of the whole city. And so they have a huge task to do around those particular areas. We know that they could use additional resources, not just in staffing, but in the tools and materials and all of the work that they do, the materials that they use. So we'll be adding $390,000 to that budget as well. We're hoping that might be only for a year or 2, because as the rest of this is accomplished, which I'll talk about in a minute, we hope that the need for this will diminish over time, and so that may or may not be an ongoing commitment. Pandora and Princess, as you well know, have suffered for some years with the impact of a significant amount of encampments in both of those areas. And so over the last few years, yeah, stop for a minute. Over the last few years on Pandora, particularly the 900 block, but also in the 800 and 1000 blocks, there have been a variety of charrettes, community conversations about how that could be rehabilitated, how the infrastructure could be rebuilt, how it could return to a more accessible place for the common use and enjoyment of the public at large. Those plans have been very detailed in some aspects and have cost an estimate somewhere between $7 and $12 million. There's a very, very big ticket for that. We don't think that that's something that we can accommodate in the short term, but we have allocated $3.75 million to the preliminary work, and that will go into supporting the reimagination and rebuilding of particularly the 900 block of Pandora, but some of the adjacent blocks as well, to return it to that more publicly accessible and more frequently used by the general public for general use and enjoyment. Secondarily, we have not had a chance to have those kind of conversations with the folk at Princess, so we don't have a firm plan for that, but we do know that we need one, and we've done some preliminary estimates about doing similar work for those blocks, and so in this is also $1.1 million for that work, to be determined. That's the one, I guess, two parts of the plan. There's the enforcement and the response piece. There's the rehabilitation and reimagination piece. But there's also an important investment to be made upstream, as we call it, in order to try and mitigate the need for this type of work as we go along. So in addition to bylaw, policing, infrastructure, and public works, we're also going to be investing upstream in supporting existing nonprofit service providers who do such a fantastic job. In particular, we're looking at $624,000 for relocation services. As you well know, we've had contracts with a number of agencies recently working with folks in the parks and the boulevards and actually connecting them and really transitioning them into the services that they require. So we're going to support them to do more of that, and that's $624,000. And in addition to that, we're also going to be looking at some innovative ways for us to respond to the ongoing frustration that the city has about other jurisdictions and agencies sending folk into the city. And so we're actually going to collaborate with a nonprofit, to be determined, to be clear, to actually establish some transportation services, let's call them, in a way where we have some type of a vehicle which has some basic accommodation for assessment and first aid and very minimalist type of health response. Most importantly, to determine what the services are needed by each individual and to take them there. And so that is going to be a new way for us to engage with nonprofits to help them do the important work that they have the expertise to do. The goal is to get people to the services they need and to do so no matter where those services are located. So that's a significant piece as well. And then finally, we've said for a long, long time that one of the things we've been waiting for is to make sure that people who are currently unhoused, whether they're on Pandora or Princess or anywhere in the city, particularly downtown, they have the ability to move to a destination where they can get greater care. And so we've been waiting a long time for that to happen, and it has been happening incrementally over the last few years, without a doubt. And certainly, as I always say, kudos to the province for working on those services, both health and housing services. But it takes a really long time to do that. Excellent. Visitors, I like it. It takes a really long time to provide those services. And so we've been told, our publics have told us repeatedly. Yeah, I'll just wait for a second. Our publics have told us repeatedly for a significant amount of time now that we need to be, I guess, not waiting as long. And so we are going to invest a significant amount of money in testing some additional temporary housing solutions. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like at this point. Let me be clear, we do not have any destinations in mind at this point. But we do know that if we don't step in, at least on a temporary basis for a couple of years, and create some destinations for these folks, they're still just going to languish where they are. And so we are going to spend some money doing that work as well. And so altogether, as I mentioned, that is about, I don't know if I mentioned this yet, but that total is just over $13 million. That is a heck of a lot of money. I was going to say something else, but maybe that's not appropriate. So let me tell you where that money is going to come from. It's no good my standing here and saying we're going to do this unless I actually can tell you how we're going to write the check. So here's how we're going to write the check. We made a commitment some time ago with community safety and well-being that whatever would be necessary in this year, in 2025, we would not be asking for new money. We would not be asking for additional tax increases, that we would be working within the existing 2025 budget, which obviously means we're going to have to move money from existing programs and services. And so here's how we're going to do it. Got to turn the page, sorry, lots to say. So, $1.5 million is going to be reallocated from the money that's currently designated for upgrades and augmentation of the facilities at Royal Athletic Park. Let me be clear that there are essential pieces of the work that are there that deal with accessibility upgrades and life safety, which will continue, so that will not be compromised. The $1.5 million will just deal with some of the additional things that we wanted to do perhaps in the longer term. And so we'll be using $1.5 million from the RAP budget. 1.65 will be reallocated from the current reserves for housing. So our housing reserve is about twice that right now, and so we're going to take half of that and use that for some of the work around both the relocation and the temporary housing pieces. In addition, we're going to target $700,000 from future transfers into that reserve and not transfer that money into the reserve in the last part of 2025 and into 2026. And so we'll be using that $700,000 as well. $2.5 million is being taken out of the renewal project for Centennial Square. You will no doubt ask the question, what does that mean? And so I'll just answer it before you need to ask it. And that is that the upper portion of the eastern side of the project will be delayed indefinitely to be a date yet to be determined. $4 million will come from the city's financial stability reserve. That is a reserve that's set aside for dealing with emergency situations, with public safety, with requirements that are unexpected but are required to be undertaken in order to ensure the stability of the city itself, and this certainly qualifies for that. So that 1.5, 1.65, 700,000, 2.5, and 4 million, all total $10.35 million. That's obviously not enough to finish all of this work, but it is enough to get us started in a very meaningful and tangible way. And if we proceed with at least that much money, then we will be able to accomplish this work as quickly as possible in concert with our partners, both at the province as well as with the police services, with nonprofits, with community, and with the support of our residents. I'll say that there's no doubt in my mind that this is the single most important issue this council has dealt with. And the fact that it has looked at some very important issues, some very important programs, some very important projects, and made the collective decision to hold on some of them, to reduce some of them, to transfer funds by some of them, indicates the understanding of council that this is that issue. If we execute this, you will see the beginning of the tangible aspects of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, which will unfold over the next few years, but over the next few months and perhaps into the next year, we can accomplish this with this commitment of finances, with this commitment of partners, and with this commitment of council. We must do this. We must do this. And I think the fact that I've been able to stand before you and tell you not just what we're going to do, but how we're going to pay for it, is an indication that it will happen. There'll be many challenges along the way, but we will surmount them. Yeah.
Mayor, one of the notes in your release here says resources are needed to demonstrate that criminals can no longer thrive in Victoria.
Correct.
Are criminals currently thriving in Victoria?
There's certainly aspects of stories that we hear and that the police can confirm that within some parts of community there is a preponderance of criminals who are taking advantage of vulnerable folk and who I think perhaps haven't been given as clear a message about the fact that that is not tolerated in the city. The fact that we're indicating a significant support and increase for policing, I think supports that notion and allows our police department and the sworn officers and civilian supporters to do the work they need to do.
I
Yes.
happened to him on Sunday.
Yes.
You've also seen the letter that he sent to you.
Yes.
There are a number of things in here that he's asking you to do. One of them is increase resources for
Yes.
police. That's in here.
Yes.
But there's also calls for establishing permanent structured mental health and addiction treatment facilities.
Yes.
Not temporary shelters. And a call from you for intervention from
Yes.
the province and the feds.
Yes.
What do you say, or what did you say to Tyson?
Yes.
If you're willing to share,
Yeah.
or what message you hope Victorians get out of this following what happened to him on Sunday?
Yeah, I'll say a couple of things. First of all, as I said to Tyson, it's a heartbreaking situation that he encountered. He and I have actually spoken before that a number of times, and so I'm not going to reveal our conversation. I think that's inappropriate, as I think it's important for people to feel they can talk to me and not have that be part of a media statement. But at the same time, I mean, his commentary around policing you will see reflected here. I do want to say that what you're hearing and seeing today is not a reaction to the last few weeks. It is a very intentional and very thoughtful plan that has been percolating and being set out for a number of months through the Community Safety and Wellbeing program. And we needed to go through these steps in order to make sure that we had the ability to actually do the work and pay for it. So while I think it has been an extraordinarily unfortunate sequence of events that have happened throughout not just our community, but throughout the region and in other areas in the last little while, I look at that as a symptom of the fact that this is the right thing to do at the right time. I think that for the other two parts of what Tyson has suggested, I agree with him completely. In the longer document that you have there, you will see a reference to the fact that we do want to have a look at our local bylaws to see what we can do to clarify and perhaps adjust what our bylaw staff are allowed to do with the police. But the other aspect of it that speaks to provincial intervention and provincial resourcing, of course I'm going to stand here and say yes, absolutely. Much of this would be benefit by and be able to be done more quickly if we had robust provincial cooperation, and we hope that that will be the case. We have a good relationship with them, and there's no reason to think that they won't be supportive of all of this. But there's certainly aspects of this that lie entirely within provincial and federal jurisdiction, without a doubt. And one of the issues that comes up not just with Tyson's commentary, but commonly is the issue of bail reform, which is, of course, is very federal. So, yeah, it's I think what comes out of that, it's an interesting question. What comes out of that is the fact that we all have something that we have to do. We can't do everything alone, but we can do some things that are able to be executed quickly as long as we take responsibility for that, which I think this is. But we have to rely on other orders of government. We have to rely on the service providers. We have to rely on the residents. This is a plan that is now multifaceted, well-funded, and will be executed as quickly as possible.
Mayor, you talked about tangible results. What do they look
Yep.
like in the next 1 or 2 months
Yeah.
concerning bylaw, police, and
Yep.
city staff? What does it look like?
It's a great question, and I'm not sure I can give you a specific within that short a time frame, but what I will say is that there's challenges around policing, of course, because there's significant challenges around how long it takes to train new people. But I do know that there is a capacity that the police have done previously to hire existing police officers from different jurisdictions. And I believe now that with this request, I'll call it a request because obviously we don't dictate operations for the police department, but I do know that Chief Manick has suggested that there are ways to do this quickly, and I will rely, of course, on his expertise to figure out how to do that. So I'm hoping you will see relatively quickly a much more visible presence for both bylaw and policing doing the work that they do, but in a more concentrated way in the downtown core, but on Pandora and Princess in particular. And I think that's the visibility of those people, the outcome of more public works, attention to the detail of the public realm, the negotiations that we'll have with service providers about how to do their jobs better, all of that will become apparent in the next few months. I have made the commitment, and I'll say it publicly again, that I would return to the Downtown Victoria Business Association before the end of the year to demonstrate the outcomes of decisions like this. And so there's your time frame.
Do we see the removal of more candidates? Do we see more arrests?
Well, I won't speak to arrests. That's not something that's in my purview, obviously. But certainly the intent is to ensure that areas where there is a concentration of overnight sheltering, that those are distributed, and they're distributed to places where those people can get proper care.
Mayor, what do you say to people who
Yep.
community frustration, business frustration.
Yep.
What do you say to people who may be frustrated that seemingly the city has come up with $10 million in fairly short order since this plan was approved by council?
Yep.
What do you say to people who are frustrated with that?
I'm not
The
quite
optics
sure.
of just coming up with $10 million when you've been in a budgetary process previous to
Yeah.
this.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry,
just
wasn't quite
like
clear in
the-
your question.
The optics. We have $10 million now to action.
I don't know if I talk about the optics as I talk about the very, very hard choices that council has been faced with to choose different priorities. There's been no doubt that the process of creating the plan has taken time because it needed to be thorough, inclusive, engage with the community, and provide an opportunity for us to be directed by community. And that's happened. Nearing the end of that, as it's come to council, then the opportunity was, what do we need to do first? And layered onto that is, how fast do we need to do it? And there's no doubt in my mind that the public has told us that this is urgent and needs expedition. To do that, we had to move money. And yes, when the budget was done last year, the decisions that we made at that time were sound. The decisions that we needed to make now needed to be adjusted based upon the realities and the demands of the public. I think what this shows is the connection of council in recognizing that the priorities that we thought were paramount a year ago are still important, but not as important as this issue.
You have been watching a news conference in Victoria talking about public safety. Mayor Marianne Alto addressed a series of violent incidents that the city has seen in recent days and gave an update on the city's community safety plan. The mayor says millions of dollars will be spent on bolstering public safety and addressing street disorder. The mayor has asked the police chief to hire 9 new officers who will have the skills needed to work in areas like the downtown core. Alto says there will be more funding for public safety in the city budget moving forward. Let's give you a recap of some of these recent violent incidents that the city has seen. On Sunday morning around 9:30, the fire department called police saying a man with a weapon was threatening and preventing firefighters from entering a building on Queens Avenue to attend a potential fire. Officers arrived and arrested the man. Another man was then found inside that building with serious injuries and was transported to hospital. Major crime detectives are investigating. That same evening, patrol officers responded to an assault of a business owner in the 600 block of Yates Street. And police say the victim sustained non-life-threatening injuries while defending himself from the assault. Police believe the suspect and the victim did not know each other. Victoria Police say they remain dedicated to ensuring the safety and well-being of the community. Thank you so much for staying with us during this live news conference. I'm Yasmin Ghaneya. We'll have more coverage on our other platforms. Thank you.